What's up, everybody? I'm Brady Green. Welcome to the video. Happy Friday. Hope everybody had a good week. If you're not watching this on Friday, then happy day. So last week I did Bebop. This week I'm doing his little partner in crime, Rocksteady. The idea of these is, for one, to do some fan art. I've been wanting to do some fan art for a while. And, I love me some Ninja Turtles. And then the other thing is to not do what everybody else does and make them as tough as possible. So I wanted to kind of babyfy them. So I changed a lot of their weaponry. I changed a lot of their just outfit and stuff to be more toddler-esque. For this guy, he usually carries like a big assault rifle or a light machine gun. I changed it to just one of those squeaky hammers. He usually has a machete over his arm or over his shoulder. It's still a sword, but it's like a toy sword. It's made out of cardboard. And what else did I change? There's just some minor things. I put, instead of like metal studs on his wrists, I put like dot candies. Changed his bomber cap, which in the original thumbnail that you can see there, hadn't thought of this yet, but I changed his bomber cap and night vision goggles to a bucket hat and swimmer goggles. So that's kind of some changes I made. There's probably some other things along the way, but those are the main things I used to kidify him. Not to mention, making his head way bigger and just, body proportions, making them more toddler-like. So the sketch that I had initially was just done in a notepad that I had. Couldn't seem to replicate it when I was doing a video, or like when I went digital, and I tried to just redo the sketch just so you guys could see me do the initial sketch, but I couldn't replicate it. So I figured, man, I'll just scan the sketch and draw over it. So it's a real quick thumbnail. Took me, all of 5 minutes, if that. So then I did in the red pencil, just a kind of a slightly tighter sketch. And then over top of that, doing my final line art. Now, the line art is still sketchy. It's still done with a pencil tool, but making some finalized decisions on things, just cleaning things up. So that's kind of the process I'm using as far as the drawing goes. This week, I definitely had some things that I wanted to change from what I did Bebop. So Bebop, I felt like things got kind of muddy. My workflow especially got very convoluted and just uneasy to work with. I did things in one layer or close to one layer. Like all my local colors I did in one layer, which I never do. And I don't know why I did it that way. So this week, I made a conscious effort to make that easier on myself and divide things up into layers. So I with all my local colors, like I'll divide them up into separate layers. So the goggles will be on one layer, the hat will be on another layer, the like skin tones will be on one layer. And that way, if I decide in 10 minutes to change a color, I can just go to that layer, change that layer color, and not have to like repaint, paint over what I've already painted. I don't want to have to paint things twice. Just changing the color of the things I've already painted is fine. But so I decided to do that this week, and it saved me a ton of time and made things just way easier on me. Last week, Bebop took 4.5 hours. This week, Rocksteady took 3.5. So it saved me an hour of time just from easing or switching up my workflow. So that's something you'll probably notice if you watched Bebop. Especially if you watch the 4.5 hour long Bebop video, you may notice some big differences in the way that I'm painting. Going into this, I knew that I wanted some of the line work to show through, but not all of it. When I do shadows, when I do a lot of the detail work, I don't even bother with a lot of like the lower half of him. A lot of my detail is put into the face, the things that I know are going to be in focus. Just trying to match my Bebop character. I wanted him to be in the same the same room, the same kind of like photo shoot. So I knew he was going to have pretty close to the same lighting and camera, feel. So on Bebop, I had this like tilt shift kind of blurred out, so his ears and his feet are kind of blurred out. So your focus is like right in on his face. And so I knew I was going to have that. So automatically, with knowing that it's going to be blurred in certain areas, there's no point in putting a bunch of detail where it's just going to be blurred out. There's detail there, just not as much. Also with color, like lighting and shadow and stuff, I don't have to worry too much about the feet, because I also know that he's like half in shadow, just like I did Bebop. There's going to be a cast shadow put right straight across him. So I know that. So that automatically tells me that I don't have to spend a bunch of time on his shoes or his pants, which is nice, because it's always nice to realize you don't have to put in the work. It kind of stinks when you put in the work and then you make a decision like, wow, put in a lot of work to those boots, and now I'm just blurring them out and putting them in shadow. It's always good to have a game plan going in. A couple of the changes, by the way, Rocksteady always has turtle shells like on his hips. I don't know why. I guess just like a souvenir. That's the word I'm looking for. From like turtles he's killed, maybe, I don't know. But I took those out. Not so much because I thought it was like too violent or anything. It's just once I got it drawn, it started out as a mistake. Honestly, I just forgot them, and then once I realized it, I didn't like the idea of putting them in. It was just going to be really clunky and kind of distracting. He also wears like a what is it called, like a bullet sash for holding his ammunition. Well, he doesn't have a gun, for one, and two, it was just going to be a lot of stuff to put right on his chest. Like, I already have his hammer in the way, his hands are up there kind of in the way. He has the one strap that's holding on his machete thing, and I didn't want to put more stuff there. Bebop got kind of confusing in terms of just things that he had on his person. When I've done things like making his body so short, his head so big, as there's the proportions I've given. It's hard to squeeze in a lot of stuff in that little space, and if you add too much, it can just be really hard to read and just really distracting. So I chose just to keep out those things, the sash and the turtle shells and stuff. It just wasn't 100% necessary. So that's, if you're hardcore Ninja Turtle fans, you might catch that. But right here, by the way, I'm still tightening up and finishing out this line work, even though I'm wrapping it up. I'm getting real close to the end here. From there, I add local color. I'm just choosing kind of a really mid-ground for the background. Just finishing off a couple of the line work that I saw. This is a pointless little task here. I thought, man, that line, the hat just is kind of mixing in with everything else. I want to make sure I separate that. So I do a dark line, like a thicker line, just to separate it, knowing that I'm going to paint over it. So I don't even know why I did it. But, well, I know why, is because as I'm looking at a pencil drawing, a black pencil drawing, I want it to look good just on its own. So that's why I did it. I didn't really need to, but anyways, that's the kind of thought process I was having. So from here, I created a silhouette, and I'm masking all the other layers into that one large silhouette. So those pants are on their own layer, and they're masked into that main silhouette. This shirt is on its own layer, masked into that silhouette. You don't have to mask it for sure. I just do it to kind of save time and make it a little easier when doing some of these edges. I changed up that bottom of the shirt. A couple reasons. One is it had this weird tangent with the bottom of the hand and the hammer. Like, there was just a weird line there that was just strange. And so earlier, I think I actually raised it up to solve that problem. And then I realized the shirt was looking more like a bra, and I didn't want that. I didn't want him to be wearing a bra. So Instead, I moved it down, and that made it look more like a shirt and solved the problem of that tangent. Don't be afraid to change things like that, for sure. I mean, you really shouldn't be afraid to change anything. If something is bothering you in a painting, make sure you change it. Because if it bothers you, there's a good chance it's going to bother somebody else. I'm going to get a drink. There's definitely this like back and forth that you always have in your head about some things that bother you. If I look at any one of my paintings ever, there's probably something that bothers me. And most of the time, it is stuff that only bothers me. Nobody else would know it unless I point it out. And even when I point it out, a lot of people are just like, oh, geez, who cares? Well, I care. So there is this balance between what do I care about that only I care about, and what do I care about that other people are going to care about, even if they don't know they care about. Like, is it going to make it a better picture if I change this? And things like that tangent and that shirt, that's something that would bother people. Even if they don't know it bothers them, it would bother them. So things like that, you definitely want to go back and change. So I'm just continuing here, making a new layer for everything, every piece, every different color. I mean, I put all these little these are supposed to be like candy dots, by the way, and one Cheerio on his little wrist guard there. So I put all those on one layer. His hat is on one layer. This stripe actually might be on a different layer, but going through and changing colors of like the squeaky hammer just to see if I like a different color better. That is actually one thing that, last week with Bebop, I couldn't do. I changed the color of the crayons on Bebop, and I was so angry with myself when I was doing it because I knew I should have done this on different layer. It should have been a 5-second change, and instead it was like a 5-minute change because I had to repaint all the crayons. So that was just a mistake that I learned from last week, and don't know why I did it on one layer last week. I never work like that. Anyways, moving on. So I'm done with my local color. I've put it into one group. You can see I have a folder in my layers called color. And then on top of that I have masked into that folder is a multiply layer that I'm putting like a light gray over top of. And, it's a pretty standard gray. Like, it's in the red family, you see, but it's all the way desaturated. So you can experiment with cooler shadows. You can experiment with like saturated shadows. It kind of just depends. I think last week for Bebop, I actually did like a really warm shadow. It just worked out. I started out, I remember, with like a blue, and it looked awful. So I changed it to a warm, and it ended up working out better. So I'm done with my shadows, or I've gotten to a place with my shadows that I'm pretty happy with. I always go back and forth. I mean, I should never say I'm done with the shadows, because it's not that step by step. It's a process. You work in one step, and then you kind of go back to a step and fix that and make it work together. So right now I've created another layer on top of everything, even on top of my line drawing. And for this, I'm painting over. I'm for one adding highlights, adding like here I'm adding the eye. The eye, I wanted it to be detailed, and I want it to look a little more real. I don't want it to look cartoony and like it was just like a coloring book. So with this layer, in addition to adding highlights, I'm actually painting over a lot of my line work in this focal area. I definitely leave some line work there. In different places, but in tight focal areas like the eye and the horn, the nose area, I try to paint over that line work just to get rid of that coloring book feel. So a lot of this is just, this is kind of a fun. I like this stage. When I get to this stage, it's like, oh yeah, I get to add in all these cool highlights and textures and stuff. Like, this is really fun step for me. Going in and adding just these little tiny like rim lights and highlights is very enjoyable. It's not even just a highlight layer. It's a color layer. Here I'm just trying to get that like torn up, like distressed edge that a lot of toddler hats have, like toddler bucket hats. Going in detail like hair. It's just not. It's not just letting the line work make up the drawing. I want it to be more of a natural painting. In a painting, if you were doing this on a canvas, you'd have your line work, and your line work's there. A lot of times when I do a painting like this, I will paint and then hide the line work and then kind of fill it in to where it looks like it's completely covered up, right? Completely abandoning the line work. Well, this time I wanted that line work there. So on a painting, on a canvas, you'd have that line work. You have to live with it. You can't just hide it. You have to paint over it. But inevitably, you're probably going to have some line work showing through, and that's the kind of thought process that I had with this. I wanted that line work there. I wanted some of it, just to give it more of a natural feel. So I don't go crazy on covering up every bit of line, but in areas where I wanted your focus, I wanted more of a realistic feel to it, more of a finished, complete feel. I went ahead and I covered up those lines and didn't get mad didn't go crazy if there was still some line showing through. So now I'm just getting little details here and there, like this is duct tape. I wanted it to look like duct tape, so I'm adding just a little highlight here. That's like Rocksteady always carried a machete on his back, and so I just gave him like a cardboard sword because he's a kid. And then here on this squeaker, it was so much in the foreground and in your face that I really, really didn't want black line on that. It had to be more in focus, or it was more in focus just because of its placement. So went in and painted over the black lines. These little dots, they're supposed to be dots, not little drawings of just who knows what, because as a black line, it's hard to tell what it was. Things that make up the look of like candy dots are the fact that they're just these little squishy, gummy, translucent, things. So I had to make sure it had that look. Added my big cast shadow here, which the nice thing about it is it hides a lot of things. Your eye just doesn't go down there. It's like you're noticing it without noticing it. Attention is not brought to this guy's pants or his shoes. You can see him, but it just keeps the attention on his face, having everything cast shadow down there. And then all I'm doing here is just adding in this like rim light. So he's got this main light shining on his face, but then he's got this rim light kind of off to his right. The thing about rim lights and stuff like that, multiple light sources are always good because it really helps tell the story of your shape. It tells the viewer that it is in space. It's not just a 2D, cell drawing. It tells them that there's dimension there. And then just kind of touching up this rim light, making sure that rim light can really, like right there on the face, can really define that edge and tell you where that face is going around in space there. At this point, I'm doing the background, of course, but I keep noticing this squeaker is having some problems. It's blending in, like the value is really close to that arm. So here, at any minute, I'm going to do a selection of that squeaker and darken it up, just to separate it out. Just to see right here, I'm trying a few things, still don't like it, and end up going back to it several times just because I can't seem to get over the fact that it's just blending in. See, here I was almost done with it. Like I was like, and then the more I looked at it, the more I realized I can't just leave it like that. So just make a selection. I just darken that edge, and you see how it pops up from the arm now. It definitely is separate from the arm. It's definitely, you got to use your values to distinguish things from one another. And then just some touches on lighting. You know, I just went in with the dodge tool and just hit a couple little areas. You don't want to go overboard with any like dodge or burn, like, but it is a tool and it is worth using from time to time. So and then I just added little dust particles and stuff just to make it kind of a fancy picture. And you know, with the lighting, you know, a lot of times you'll see little dust particles like that. So just finalizing things out, and from there it's, you know, just making it kind of a pretty picture is all that is. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys took something away from this. Whether you learned something or you just, you know, were entertained for 20 minutes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and commenting. I always enjoy your comments, and, you know, I enjoy reading them and I enjoy responding to them. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't already, please do. And you guys have a good week. Go out and draw. Go out and, you know, fill up 18 sketchbooks by tomorrow. But seriously, go draw. Go create something. Go have fun. All right. Bye-bye.